A couple of years ago, when I was pregnant with my precious daughter, my husband and I decided that we needed to get a reliable new car. So after doing a lot of research, we went to the dealership and we picked out a car that we liked, and the salesman proceeded to try to upsell us, which is what salesmen do. So one of the packages that he wanted us to buy was called the all-weather package. And one of the features in this package was heated windshield wipers. I know, it sounds amazing, especially after you've spent 2 months shoveling your car out of snow and scraping the crap out of your windshield, pregnant and in snow boots. And I fell on my butt I don't know how many times that winter trying to scrape my windshield. So I'm thinking of these heated windshield wipers, and I'm imagining like lightsabers slashing through the snow and the ice on my windshield. And it turned out, after we bought the package and spent the money, that that's not really what they do. So my husband and I were both a little surprised to find that after we turned the car on and, you have to have the defogger running to make the heated wiper blades work, they didn't cut through the ice on the windshield. I still had to get out there with my little ice scraper and scrape the ice off the windshield manually before I could use the wiper blades on the windshield. So after a couple of weeks of thinking that maybe they were broken, we realized something. The heated wiper blades are not heated wiper blades. The heated windshield wipers are not heated. The only thing that's heated is a little strip at the bottom of the windshield. And what it does is pretty useful. It prevents the wiper blades from sticking to the windshield. So you don't have to pull your wipers up when it's going to blizzard. And we live in New York, so we get blizzards in the winter. So you don't have to pull your wiper blades up in the winter so that when it blizzards, your wipers don't stick to the windshield. You turn on the car and this heated strip heats your wiper blades so that they don't stick. That's all it does. That's our heated windshield wipers. But the name of it makes it seem like it's something else, doesn't it? I mean, it's kind of a silly thing to admit, because I'm sure there are a lot of you out there going, well, of course the wipers aren't heated. That's ridiculous. But you couldn't really blame me either when they call it heated windshield wipers for thinking that the wipers themselves are heated, when it's not. It's just the strip at the bottom of the windshield. So why am I telling you this story? What does it have to do with the Russians hacking our election? Well, it's about the sales technique, this technique of calling something a Russian hack when really it's maybe neither Russian nor a hack. Now let's talk about the difference between what our government is saying actually happened and what people have been led to sort of believe happened through really no fault of their own. What our government is saying is that the Russian government ordered certain individuals and institutions of the Democratic Party to be hacked and for that information to be released to the general public in order to influence the election against Hillary Clinton and for Donald Trump. Now, what people think is being said, and I've literally heard people saying this, is that Russia hacked into our voting machines and changed votes. That they added votes, they subtracted votes, they made it so that your vote didn't count or counted for someone that you didn't intend. So it's important for you to understand that if you've been making the argument that the Russian government hacked into our voting machines, no one is backing you up on that. If the CIA was literally standing right behind you and you were having an argument with some guy on the street about it, and you were like, yeah, that's totally what happened. The Russian government hacked into our voting machines. Isn't that right, CIA? Isn't that what you're saying, huh? The CIA would be like, nah, that's not at all what I'm saying happened. They'd leave you hanging. Because while they're okay with you believing that that's what happened, they can't say that that's what happened because it didn't happen. So that's literally the only claim that they're making, that the Russian government ordered our democratic parties, institutions, and individuals to be hacked and for that information to be released to the public. So now that we've separated out what our government is actually saying from what you might believe our government was saying, let's look at what they're actually saying and try to discern whether there's any evidence for the claims that they're making. Now, we're going to put all of those claims into two different bins. Here you have the claims that they are presenting evidence for, and here you have the claims that they've not presented evidence for. Their first claim is that there are two hacker groups that we know of. They call them Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear, or we call them APT-29 and APT-28, who hacked into the DNC. Okay, they provide good enough evidence of that. We can put that over here. There's evidence. The next claim that they make is that these bear groups were working for the Russian government. Well, what's the evidence that they supply for that? Their evidence is they were really good. That's it. They're really good hackers, so they must be working for the Russian government. Okay, let's put that over here. Then they want you to buy this assumption that these bear groups are the ones that stole the emails and published them in order to sway the election. So where's their evidence for that? In fact, CrowdStrike, who's the group that the DNC paid to investigate, they hired CrowdStrike, the DNC, to investigate the hack, right? And CrowdStrike turned around and said, these two groups don't even know of each other. They weren't working together, and in fact, they probably didn't even know that they were hacking at the same time. In fact, the DNC is what you'd call a honeypot. It's a ripe target for a lot of hackers, and the problem here is that these governmental agencies are not even asserting that they know which of these two bear groups, if either of them, were the ones who got the information. So we know that they got in. They can prove that they were in there, but they can't prove which of them took the emails, if either of them in fact did. They have no evidence of that, and they're not even trying to say that they do, but they're still trying to act like they took these emails and it was because of the Russian government. And not only that, but Julian Assange himself, who is the editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks, which is the organization that leaked the emails to the public, has said that his source was not the Russian government, and in fact wasn't from Russia at all. It was from a concerned whistleblower from within the DNC. It was a leak and not a hack. And we'll talk about the difference between a leak and a hack, because that's an important differentiation as well. There was a former UK ambassador who also backed up Julian Assange's claim that it was a leak and not a hack, and who has said that he knows the person who leaked the information to Julian Assange. Now let's talk a little bit about the difference between a leak and a hack, because I'm seeing a lot of people saying there is no difference, it doesn't matter, it's just semantics. Well, it isn't, and I'll explain why. Let's talk in physical terms. So a hack is like if someone breaks into Fort Knox and steals the gold and then breaks back out. A leak is like someone who works at Fort Knox, who has legal access to the gold, who comes into work one day, goes to do whatever they do with the gold, pockets some of the gold, and then walks out normally. And the only way they would know some of the gold was stolen in that case is if some of it is missing. Of course, it's a little different with data, because the comparison would be more like, with a thumb drive. They come in and they plug the thumb drive in and they take the data off of they copy the data off of someone's computer. So the data is still physically there, right? So the only way that they know that the data was taken, was copied, is that it gets leaked later on. All of a sudden it's public. But with a hack and with a physical robbery, there's an evidence trail. So if someone hacks in, the NSA can look at that. They can tell, and they can trace the evidence back to Russia, if it's Russia, by looking at the evidence trail. The NSA is not saying, though, that they've found an evidence trail like that. So if we knew it was Russia, then they would be saying that. If it was provable in that sense, if it was a hack, we'd have the evidence, the NSA would be talking about it. But they're not. ultimately, the point that I want to make, though, really doesn't have anything to do with all of the debunking that I just did. So let's just say that all of it is true, because it's possible. It's plausible. What they're saying could in fact be true. You know, we're not seeing evidence of it, as I've just said, but that doesn't mean that it isn't what's happening. Let's say that it is. Do you really want to go to war with Russia? I mean, I'm seeing so many people egging on this war, demanding that President Obama do something. And do you know what he's doing? He's imposing sanctions. He is doing something. That's a step on the way to war, in case you really aren't aware. Russia's a world power. It's not like imposing sanctions on Syria, which we've been doing, and I'm hoping to get to that in another video. But when you're talking about going to war with Russia, that's going to be a world war with a nuclear power. It's not a good idea. It's not something that you just do just because, I mean, keep in mind also that even if everything that they're saying is true, this was not a brute force attack, okay? This was spear phishing, which means that they sent malware through the email and they got John Podesta and someone at the DNC to enter their information voluntarily into this It's like literally when you get an email that's like, "Hi Martina, this is Bank of America. Would you input your username and password?" Everybody with any brains knows that you don't input your username and password, that you'd go to the official site and see if they're looking for your username and password. Okay? John Podesta wasn't that smart. Whoever it was at the DNC who fell for whatever spear phishing scheme wasn't that smart. Okay? So it wasn't a brute force attack where they like forced their way into our systems. It was spear phishing. You want to go to war with Russia because some idiot at the DNC fell for a spear phishing tactic? Is that, like, seriously? That's what you want to do? You want to impose sanctions on Russia and provoke them? And, you know, like, they have nuclear weapons. This is not a joke. So think about it. Think about how, if you want to go to war with Russia, what that means. Are you going to sign up for the U.S. Armed Forces and physically go off to war with Russia? Are you ready to fight for your country against spear phishing? Are you ready to volunteer your sons and daughters for that? Are you ready to place your faith in our anti-missile technology that we're going to be able to shoot down any and all Russian nukes that might be coming our way one day because as a result of this? Are you ready to do that? I mean, if the answer is unclear for you to any of those questions, then maybe you want to take a break from shouting people down about this and from red baiting. But it's equally possible that the hack wasn't a hack, that it was a leak, and it came from the source that Julian Assange is saying that it came from. Someone in the DNC, a whistleblower, a concerned American, who saw the level of corruption in our government and said, "We've had enough.